الرحيم إن الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. To proceed, brothers and sisters and friends, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So good to see you guys here. Alhamdulillah. It's good to be back. I think it was about 5 years ago, 2009. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. And you know, I was reflecting upon what happened 5 years ago. And I was speaking to the brothers in the car just earlier, and I said to them, who was I 5 years ago? Because when I see myself in the past, I don't really see me. Do you get that as well? Sometimes you reflect on the past and you think, was that me? How on earth could I tolerate me when I was me? And I was thinking, subhanallah, it is no wonder that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, via the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, actually is saying to us that you be judged on your last deeds, on your last intentions essentially. Which shows really the irrelevance of the past, and it really shows the dynamism of Islamic theology. Because I was been reflecting on the Quran recently, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that those who did lots of really nasty sins, bad, evil deeds, and they repent to Allah sincerely, Allah will not only forgive them, but He will make the deeds into good deeds. So just this trip and coming here again after 5 years just makes me realize the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just by reflecting, who were you then, right? And because obviously you change and you move forward as a human being and you grow and you develop. But I'm just using this experience to share an experience with you so you could do tadabbur and engage with the reality of rahmah in Islam and with the reality of mercy in Islam. Because we need rahmah these days. My talk today is going to be not on this topic obviously. It's going to be on, is life just a game? And that's a good question. Now Muslims may think, Brother Hamza, of course life is not just a game. Life is about worshipping Allah. Yes, nice cliche. Let's move on. Because we all know that. We all have this linguistic kind of understanding of what we should do and who we are. I call this linguistic wrapping. We wrap our self, our sense of self, our soul, our ruh. We wrap our personality, our identity in this language. I'm Malay, I'm Muslim, I'm Chinese, I'm black, I'm Indian, whatever. I'm an engineer, I'm a student. You have all of this linguistic wrapping, but when you unwrap yourself, who is there? What is left? Tell me. Take away your name, take away your ethnicity, your so-called title, take away your color, take away your race, take away your socio-economic status, your job, your family. What's left, people? Tell me, where is that thing that's left? Well, for some of us, it's nothing. And it might include all of you. And it might include me. You know, this linguistic term, I'm a Muslim. This linguistic term, I am a doctor. This linguistic term, I'm British. This linguistic term, I'm a student. Just unwrap yourself with this linguistic covering. This linguistic hijab, right? Remove it and you see who is that person we're talking about. Because brothers and sisters, wallahi, if we don't understand this, our life is a game. And it will be game over when we die. Because if I ask everybody in this room, did you choose your name? What are you going to say? No, I didn't. Actually, I chose my name. but you didn't. Did you choose your name? Did you choose your gender, brother? No. Did you choose your ethnicity, brother? No. Did we choose our socio-economic status or environment in which we were brought up? Did we choose our DNA? Did we choose this system that we're living in? Even in Malaysia, it's the same system. There's no Islamic State anymore, unfortunately. You know, look at the billboards. L'Oreal because I'm worth it, right? This avid materialism. Have you seen the H&M adverts recently? Very, very naughty, right? And the other adverts with the hijabi on there. You know, Fair and Lovely, the whitening cream. White is right. You know, if we had those adverts in England, it would be racism. It's banned, that's haram in England. You know that, to have adverts like this. You see how colonized we are. Our sense of who we want to marry and how we want to look like. It wasn't raining in the morning. I saw some sisters with an umbrella. And that's because she didn't want to get dark because of the sun. And then look at the kind of mentality we have, people. And it's the irony. We want to be like the white man, and the white man wants to be like us. Because when you go to Britain, there's a fellow Brit in this room, ask him, ask me. What do they say? I want someone tall, dark and handsome. Right? And now we want someone short, white and ugly. We want the opposite, right? I mean, because we're colonized people. And that's why we have to wake up from this game. We have an avid materialistic culture, even in the so-called Muslim society, because we define ourselves by our jobs and what we do and how much money we have and our houses and kids and wives and so on. But these things are going to be dust. These things are going to be a case against you, not a case for you in many cases. And we have to understand we are a victim of the systemic effects that affect our personality. And this links to the whole idea of social constructionism. There are social constructs in society that influentials in society make us think and feel in a certain way. And this is why in the Facebook era, in the Twitter era, we have become more individualistic. What's in it for me? I'm alright, Jack. Me, myself and I. We forget to think about other people. We forget to lose ourselves to gain others. We forget to sacrifice the essentials for someone else to have their essentials. Because we live in this me, I, ego culture. You have it everywhere. So, you can't answer the questions I've just asked you. Do you know why? Because you're slaves. We're all slaves, people. We didn't choose our names. We didn't choose our ethnicity. We didn't choose our culture. We didn't choose anything. And you think you're free. I don't care if you're born in the land of the free and the home of the brave. I don't care if you think you have the American dream, even though you live in Malaysia. And the irony is, the American dream only works when you're sleeping. Because you can only dream when you're sleeping. So I don't care if you're in this kind of comatose state thinking you have this sense of free choice and free will. This is rubbish. You didn't even choose your own name, brother. You didn't even choose your own color. You didn't choose your parents, siblings. You didn't even choose your own schools in the beginning. And some of you, you didn't even choose your own husbands, yeah? So the point is, we had no choice over these things. So we're enslaved to it. We are enslaved to it. So the question now is, how on earth do I become free and liberated? How? Well, in order for us to become free and liberated, we have to now ask a fundamental question. It's very, very fundamental. And that is, well, what are we? What are we? Well, yes, not only are we slaves, but we're something else. We're human beings in search for meaning. A human being is defined, if anything else, by the search of meaning. Because meaning is what actually gives meaning to our lives, if you understand the paradox. Let me explain. Professor Viktor Frankl, he wrote the book, Man's Search for Ultimate Meaning. He's a Jewish psychiatrist, I believe. And he gave some amazing analogies concerning what the human being is. Because in this self-help culture, this new age spiritualism, you know, Deepak Chopra, yeah? They always ask these questions, find yourself, yeah? Do you see? Know who you are. Now this for me is just new age rubbish. Okay? It's just cliched now. Because from an Islamic perspective, it's not adding more to who you are, it's actually removing who you are. Because a lot of these things are just a celebration of the ego. And this links to what Viktor Frankl said. He gave some examples and he said, look at children. Say one of my children are playing and they've been playing for 2 hours and they're immersed in play. And you see them so happy and so natural. And they think those 2 hours were like 2 minutes. And then you want to take a picture. And you take a picture privately, and that's the best picture you've taken. Is the picture of him, of her, of themselves in their natural state. But if you just say, cheese, they'll freeze up and they'll lose their natural state. So it shows that when the child is immersed and lost himself in the play with his friends, he becomes who he is. So the more he loses himself, the more he becomes. It's just like the eye. The human eye, the nature of the human eye is to see outside of itself. If the eye were to see itself, it would no longer be the eye. So the human being, brothers and sisters, is defined by search of meaning. And we think this meaning could be replaced by anything. Or we could use anything to find meaning in life. But the only way we can find true meaning is by, yes, losing ourselves, but how? And that's by killing the ego and by coming back to our own nature, which is what? To worship Allah. And let me explain what I mean by this. In Islamic theology, brothers and sisters, and you know this better than I do, in a hadith in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ, he spoke about that every human being is born in a state of fitrah, coming from the Arabic triliteral stem fa, ta, ra, which you have words like fatrun and fatarahu, that Allah created something within us that's unchanging to acknowledge Allah and to worship Allah. This is our nature, and this is not some theological outdated concept. It's supported by empirical, psychological, anthropological evidence. For example, look at the anthropological evidence. When you look at atheist cultures like China and Russia, they still had this instinct to worship. They'll have big statues of Stalin and Lenin and they'll revere them. They would even sanctify ideas. This is the shirk of conceptualization. It's the shirk of thinking ideas are greater than all of human beings and they're divine almost, okay? So they had this instinct to worship even in atheistic societies throughout the ages. Take psychological evidence. A recent study by the academic Olivera Petrovich in the key studies of the psychology of religion. She basically concludes and says, the human being, the natural state of the human being is to believe in a transcendent deity, in a God, non-anthropomorphic God. And that's the natural psyche of the human being. The unnatural psyche, and one that has to be forced on people, is atheism. Atheism is an unnatural psychological disposition according to this psychologist. Look at sociological evidence. You have the sociologist Justin Barrett. In his book, he studied children. He did a long study and he concluded that if you take children and you put them on a desert island, they're going to believe in God, regardless of what background they came from. It transcends demographic and social variables. So this is the kind of evidence we're talking about. It's a natural belief to want to worship something, especially Allah, to acknowledge Allah and to affirm His oneness. And this is the only way, brothers and sisters and friends, that we can free ourselves from all of this slavery. Right? As Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, the 14th century theologian, he said the only way to liberate yourself from the dunya, from the slavery of your own selves, the slavery to society, the slavery to the bling bling culture, the slavery to our context, is by worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even Western philosophers like the existentialists, they had the similar concept. It was called thrownness. I believe it was either Heidegger or Kierkegaard. he developed this concept called thrownness, that you're thrown into reality and you have no choice, you're enslaved to context. Now the way they sought freedom was obviously different from us, but we truly believe that the only way to beat the game of life is by worshipping Allah. I know now this shouldn't sound like a cliche anymore, because it is so profound. It's about who you are. It's about whose you are. It's about why you are, and it's about for whom you are. And he answers those questions now. And he makes you realize that actually it's such a profound concept, because I truly become, my soul becomes liberated when I worship Allah now. Because Allah even tells us essentially, if you want to summarize the Quran, here's my summary. Oh people, you have 1,000 slave masters. You're all slaves. I don't care if you have lots of money in your bank account, or if you perm your hair, or pluck your eyebrows, or if you go to the gym, or if you wear nice clothes, Gucci, Prada, whatever the case may be. The point is you're enslaved. And you have this illusion of free choice. And that's double slavery. Wallahi, sometimes I would rather have shackles on my arms, my wrists and my legs, than to be shackled by the things that I can't see. And we think we're free, but we're really enslaved. Because think about it, as we mentioned before, your boss, your teacher, even your wife, your husband, your children, your education, your previous experiences, your cultural backdrop, your DNA, you're enslaved to this. Your reference to this, you're enslaved to it. You can't transcend it. Even when you go into Prada, and you want to buy some nice shoes, for example, you think you have the choice. Shall I pick the flat shoes, the cat heel shoes, or the high heel shoes? And then you decide to buy the cat heel shoes. And once you buy the cat heel shoes, says, I like it. It's my free choice. And then when you ask that really silly woman, why are you wearing those shoes? She's like, because I look good. I said, why do you think you look good? Because it makes me feel good. But your feet are bleeding. You have plasters on your heels. And then I ask her the question further. Why do you think it makes you look good and feel good? And then you break it down so much, it says, well, I don't know. I guess it's because other people tell me I look good. So when she walked into Prada thinking she had free choice and she picked the cat heel shoes, it was an illusion of choice. She was always going to pick that way because that's what society told her. And that's the irony, people. That's the irony. So they're not free. And the only way to free yourself, as Allah says, break the shackles of these slave masters who don't know you as well as Allah does, who doesn't love you as much as Allah does, and doesn't know what's really good for you. But Allah is saying, He is your Rabb, your master, the one that loves you, sustains you and nurtures you, and He knows you better than you know yourself. He knows Hamza better than Hamza knows himself. He knows the totality of wisdom and knowledge. He knows all goodness. You know just the pixel, you arrogant so-and-so. We don't have the picture, we have the pixel. I don't care how many degrees you have. Compare your degrees to the knowledge of Allah. It's not even like a small needle in a vast ocean of sand. It's nothing. Humble yourself. So this is how you break the game of life. Let me end the last 5 minutes I have on helping you to establish that relationship with Allah. Now you may think, look at him. He thinks he's a mufti. He's going to talk about dhikr and salah and reading the Quran now. No, I'm not. I'm going to talk about that medicine that we all need. Now you know, before I turned Muslim, I became Muslim about 11 years ago. When I was reading the Quran in the beginning, I was like, who the hell wrote this book? Who is this author? I said, what's wrong with this man? That's how I was feeling, because I felt really challenged. My ego was challenged. And I realized now that was the Quranic medicine working. Because the whole point of the Quran was to also break our egos, so our hearts are unveiled so they could receive the mercy and guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the ego is the barrier to the relationship with Allah. It is a barrier. How do you break the ego? Go to the Quran, it tells us. It reminds us we were a nutfa. We're a drop of fluid, a nutfatin min maniyin. We're a drop of fluid from semen, a despised fluid. Allah tries to remind us where we came from. If you had this on your hand, you'd be like, you'd wash it off. It's not funny, people. This is serious spiritual stuff, man. We'll be like, what the heck is this? This should be on your Facebook profile. It's true. That should be on your Twitter account. What's your name? Semen. But it's true, this is where we came from. And Allah wants to remind us, and because we become open adversaries to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah says, look, who are you? Look at you. What were you? You're this nasty fluid, and you became into you. So humble yourself. You think you're self-sufficient. That's the disease of the ego. And wallahi, you reflect upon what the Quran tells you, you connect with every human being. Because you be almost egoless. And then you remind the blessings of Allah, because from this despised fluid, look how you became. And who you became and what you became. Allah formed you and nurtured you and created you. Then Allah continues and says in the 22nd chapter of the Quran, and reminds us of the life cycle of the human being. Not only from semen, but then we became a baby. Why does Allah mention the life cycle in this way? Again, to belittle your ego. It's the barrier to the mercy of Allah. You were a baby. You couldn't lift your neck up. You couldn't wipe your own posterior, your backside. You couldn't wash yourself, feed yourself. Take a newborn baby, put it in the corner for 48 hours. Dead. If you don't touch it, dead. And you think that you were created with your briefcase. Some of us think we were created with the iPhone and with all that money we have in our bank accounts and with the degrees, we were just created just like that, instantaneously. Some of us even think that we're eternal. Now, intellectually we may believe, of course I'm not eternal, but our state of psychological being is that we think we're eternal. And then Allah also tells us, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةَ الْمَوْتِ. Every soul is going to taste death. You're going to become one buffet. Yes, this body who could bench 170, and this guy who takes care of himself maybe a little bit more than his wife does, yeah? You know, some of our men are like that these days, unfortunately. We've lost that kind of, the way it means to be a man, you know? I blame it on feminism, by the way. No offense, sisters, but we've lost chivalry, haven't we? The sense of chivalry is like, why you open the door for me? You think I don't have the strength to open the door? Right? But it's true, we've lost this sense of chivalry, the sense of, you know, what it means to be a man. So, you're going to die. You're going to become worm buffet. And Allah reminds us of the limited nature of this life to continue to break the ego. And these are Quranic strategies to help us. And that's why when I first read the Quran, I was so affected. I was like, oh, you know, my ego was bashed. And it reminded me what is the true reality. So these are some strategies for us to adopt to remind ourselves continuously to really break the ego so it could facilitate the love and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it is the ego that is that barrier to Allah's mercy and guidance and love. And just reflect on your life. Reflect on the times when you had very low iman, or you were slightly moved away from the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And many times you would see is because, you know what? I was ungrateful here, which is a form of arrogance. I was arrogant here. I got complacent here. I didn't thank Allah here. I thought I was self-sufficient here. And there's like a correlation between your iman and your state of being concerning the level of arrogance you have. I do it all the time. I always reflect back and say, you know what, I was like this because I felt like this. Or my state of being was like this. And reflect. And then hopefully it will help you. So this was the short nasihah, brothers and sisters, on is life just a game and how to break free and loose from it. I hope I've given you a different angle on how to appreciate these issues, inshallah. May Allah bless you. Hopefully I'll see some of you in the weekend. We have a Dawah Power course this weekend, which will go into some of this stuff, into a little bit more detail on other things. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Hamza for that. Inshallah, we're going to open for Q&A now. There's a number up here, so inshallah just SMS, no actually WhatsApp or SMS your questions. Actually just SMS because WhatsApp is down. Please we'll look it over. So inshallah please SMS your questions here, inshallah we'll be getting them live. The question and answer is only 20 minutes, so make the most of it inshallah. Alright, I want to start off by asking Brother Hamza if if you could kindly contrast for us your life before Islam and after, and what are the significant changes you see, you know, especially with the intellectual side of things, inshallah.
It's a very good question. The brother asks about the contrast between my previous life and this life. You know, I don't believe it's binary, that's for sure, okay? Because there are some good traits that I had that were enhanced. So in a way, it's more like a journey. It's a never-ending journey. It's not a kind of binary switch. You press a button, all of a sudden you're Muslim, you become like a Superman. No, Superman, a Musliman, yeah? So, you know, you think you have this shift and you become such a great person. No, sometimes you could become a worse person. Because that's when shaitan gets you, right? Now you've got the truth, shaitan's on your back. You know, he doesn't care about the people who don't have the truth. They're already lost. So for me, it's more like a journey. I think if I were to put it into a nutshell, what would be the major changes? I would probably think it would be arrogance. It doesn't mean I don't have arrogance now, I do. But it's like what I would call a kufr type of arrogance. It's a different kind of thing. It's like, you know, when you're Muslim, you can be arrogant, but you will not be as arrogant as shaitan. That level of arrogance that made him a kafir, essentially, yeah? Or you shouldn't be, at least. And I think, you know, the moment you understand that you are a slave and you have a master, then there's that level of arrogance that you don't have. It doesn't mean you don't have arrogance at all. We probably do, and we need to work on ourselves. But there's that kind of what I would call that big arrogance that a Muslim should never ever have, which is the arrogance of shaitan, essentially. And I think that was the major change, because before, you know, I was arrogant.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khairan for that. Second question, someone's asking, and it's really interesting because in UIA, in IIUM, we don't have this problem, but with Southeast Asia in general, in the world at large, atheism is on the rise. The new atheism, especially headed by Richard Dawkins, the late Christopher Hitchens, and his likes. And so there, you know, the claims that religion is man-made and is really there to serve the basic need for humans to feel satisfied with life, and whenever they feel bad, they repent, they feel good about themselves. You know, it's just all too obvious. Why can't you see it, people? It's man-made. So, you know, this rhetoric is on the rise. How do you combat that rhetoric?
Yeah, well, obviously it's a false narrative, as we know. I mean, Richard Dawkins, rahmatullahi alayh. I'm only kidding. Richard Dawkins and co and others, you would have a very kind of binary view on religion. Like even his colleague, Professor Michael Rules from the University of Guelph, he's an atheist, but he even says about Dawkins is stupid. He doesn't know nothing about theology or philosophy, and it shows. So there's an infighting amongst the atheists, but atheists are not neo-atheists. Some atheists are just decent human beings that just want to have a conversation with you. But it's unfortunate the neo-atheists have hijacked the online sphere. I mean, I get attacked all the time, right? And they've hijacked this narrative. And the way to beat this narrative is just by being nice and compassionate and just showing to them, well, haven't you seen this perspective? And what's interesting, Richard Dawkins, for example, out of his maybe intellectual arrogance, he developed this idea of memes, this biological kind of social grouping thing, right? And he said, religion is a meme. And I'm like, well, didn't you think that maybe atheism could be a meme as well? Yeah? The irony. So, you know, in terms of they're seeing religion from this perspective, I would just humbly say, you know, yes, religion can make you feel nice, it can make you feel bad, it can make you feel whatever the case may be, but this is slightly irrelevant. It's a bit of a red herring. It's like a smelly fish that you put on the path of running dogs to divert their path. And the reason it's a red herring is because I'm interested in truth. I'm interested in truth and the benefits of this particular worldview. And I think I have good reasons to believe in Islam. Do you want to hear those reasons? And just show them the reasons. You could show them the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's very simple. You know, at the end of the day, Richard Dawkins can't even say, I am an atheist. As an atheist. The I am implies God exists. That's the irony, people. Yeah. What are you? Who are you, sir? What are you? Oh, my name is John. I'm an atheist. Oh, so God must exist then. Excuse me? Well, you said I am. What do you mean? I am. Well, I am, there is a you, right? Yes, there is a you. And what is that you? Do you have a consciousness? Yes, I have a consciousness. Well, how else can you explain it other than God? Because consciousness, I'm not talking about memory retrieval or having visual awareness. I'm talking about the key part of consciousness, which is what you call the subjective inner experience. What it is like for Hamza to eat an apple. What is it? What is it like for Hamza to eat an apple? What is it like for a bat to be a bat? What is it like for Abdullah, our Malay brother, to eat durian, which tastes like sugar? So from that perspective, what is it like for him to have a piece of fruit or papaya? This inner subjective state of what it is like to be is called the hard problem of consciousness. Materialism is stumped. It can never answer it. If you knew everything about the neurochemical patterns in your brain, they may find out and say, yes, he's eating durian. He's eating it with his right hand. He's enjoying it and he's Malaysian, yeah? Maybe they could find that stuff out. But they would never, ever, it's a logical impossibility for them to find out what it is like for him to experience durian. That's the point. We could have the same neurochemical patterns in the brain, but two sets of feelings with the same level of pain and the same injury. So the point is, this inner subjective state cannot be explained by materialism. The new scientists published this week just said there's a new fundamental law of the universe, and it's called you. And it's not your Chinese friend you, yeah? It is consciousness, because they can't explain it, so they have to fudge it in there as another law. But it's obvious. If all you had in the beginning of the universe was this rearrangement of matter, then all you're going to get is matter. But if before matter you had consciousness, like an all-aware being, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it makes sense you have this inner subjective state. So as an atheist, how could you even say, I am an atheist? It means God exists. So you show them God's existence, and you go to the Quran and show to them why you believe the Quran to be true. He has the correct concept of God. Go to Surah Ikhlas. Because when someone says, I don't believe in a God, ask them, well, maybe I don't believe in your God either. What God don't you believe in? Because many atheists think God is some white guy with a big beard on cloud 7 or something, yeah? Right? But you have to say to him, well, we don't believe in a material bound God. He's transcendent. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. There is nothing like unto him. He's not in the universe. He doesn't have a beard, right? So from this perspective, teach them about the concept of God in Islam. It's a filter for all other spiritual traditions. They all fail if you use Surah Ikhlas as the criteria. Buddhism, they don't believe in God, it's out the window. Hinduism, God's everywhere, out the window. Right? Christianity, God has one essence, 3 personalities. There's a condition for that in psychiatry. Yeah? But it's true, no offense. It's true, it's called schizophrenia. That's the theology of the Christians. If you study academic theology, you see, Jesus was homoousios. Rather, the Trinity is homoousios. They have the same essence, homoousia, the same ousia essence, 3 distinct persons. And Jesus as a person had a center of consciousness. He had a human nature and a divine nature. Which explains the contradictions in the Bible of why sometimes he acted like a human, other times he acted like so-called divine healing, etc. So you see this, it doesn't make sense. The criteria of Surah Ikhlas beats all other criteria. That's why you don't have to study all religion. Just understand the concept of God. Then talk about the miracles of the Quran. And say, look, this is truth. So whatever comes from truth is? Whatever comes from haqq is? Khalas.
Alhamdulillah. Alright, you've also debated several leading atheists. So I want to ask you how how's the experience been? Do you feel they are genuine in their seeking the truth, or do you feel it gets to a point where it's just rhetoric and nobody really wants to really get to the bottom of things? And do you know of cases where changes of hearts have occurred?
Yeah. See, this is a very good question. I get misunderstood a lot, especially by Muslims. I just want to be clear. Debates are not dawah. I make this clear all the time in every course I deliver. Debates is not dawah. Shall I repeat that again? Debate is not dawah. Now why? Debate is social engineering. It is part of the wider understanding of dawah. That's why we have 1 or 2 debates a year. We don't make it our method. Debate is only necessary for social engineering because you understand societies are shaped by leaders and followers. And if a new age movement, like new atheism, that many Muslims are becoming atheists in the West, unfortunately, they look up to the Richard Dawkins and the Professor Krauses of the world. When you debate them, you show them, you belittle them intellectually, you show that what they are on is false. So you engineer people's psychology. And that's very important. So you go to the leaders. But it's not a form of dawah. Dawah is with rahmah and patience and kindness. So the debates was never meant to be dawah. It's meant to be to remove the obstacles that prevent the dawah from being successful. Okay? That's why Ahmadiyya was so successful. He was the father of dawah. But his dawah method is not the only dawah method, debating all the time. And he was very aggressive. But it was right for the time, because Muslims were nowhere in the dawah at that time, in the West particularly. And there was a huge kind of colonial influence. There was a huge missionary influence. And he gave them an explosion, right? And said, we're here. Muslims are in your face now. We're here to play game. Yeah? And that was needed. It was social engineering. So debate is almost like a form of dawah politics. But it's not dawah one-to-one. The other thing though, which is interesting, I've changed my style in debates. If you were to look all of them throughout the years, I've adopted new arguments, made them a little bit more Islamic, of course, as well. And just recently I had a debate with Professor Peter Simons on consciousness. That's why I had this rhetoric on consciousness, yeah? And he said he agreed 95% of what I had to say. We exchanged gifts. He gave me a hug. I gave him a hug. It was very warm and loving. You'll be shocked. You see it. It's out on YouTube. Can consciousness be best explained by God's existence? And that's how I want to engage with atheists now. The Professor Krauss and all the guys before, Dan Barkers, were a bit aggressive and rhetorical. They had their time because the atheist movement was being very successful. Now we've shown our face, we're here to play game. Now it's more by being nuanced and kind and having a rahmah. So I even made a public announcement in the debate, no more rhetoric, no more aggressiveness, gifts, heart to heart. We could still have a debate, but a discussion, and that's how we should have them. The benefits of them, you'd be so shocked. I've gone all around the world. Do you know how many people convert because of debates? Quite a few. I was shocked. A whole family of 5 became Muslim because of the Dr. Buckner debate. Do you know that? I was shocked. I was in America, and they said I was an atheist, so was my family, and we just wanted to type on YouTube Islam or atheism. Then we saw that video and we became Muslim. Someone recently at Essex University came up to me, an academic, said, I became Muslim because of the Krauss debate. It's a train wreck of a debate, right? Because of, what's his name? Yusuf Chambers wasn't the best chairman, bless him, yeah? And Krauss was a bit drunk, I think, as well. Yeah? So, but it happens because people need that push. Because sometimes they want to see izzah, you know? They want to see izzah for the deen. They don't want to see apologetics, right? They don't want to see you being too forgiving. Oh yeah, we're wrong. It's postmodernism. Yes, I'm afraid of the Sharia now. I hate the hudud. You know, that's what people say now. Everything that's not in line with post-liberal culture is nasty. It's nasty now. But we're forgetting where it came from. We're here to shape society. Society is supposed to shape us. And that's the problem. We've been shaped too much by society. We need to learn to articulate a positive case for the tradition. And we have to wake up to that, because otherwise we'll just be a kafir with a beard. And think about that seriously. Yeah, because when we reject those things, then it's close to kufr. You reject hudud, then you reject this, and you reject that. Then you think everything is about higher objectives of the Sharia, then you reject how the objectives were formed in the first place. You reject everything, then you just stick to ibadah, and it becomes like New Age spiritualism. It's like humanism with salah. Yeah? Where's your deen gone? Where's your economic model to solve problems for humanity, to food, shelter and clothes for everybody? Do you see my point? So we need to be shapers. We need to be not the feather in the wind. We need to be the winds of change.
Inshallah. A lot of the crowd attending is from this university, and we have a lot of people attending from other universities as well. And obviously university is the time where you think about, you pretty much shape who you're going to be for the rest of your life, pretty much, at least in most aspects of your life. And so what do you have, what recommendations would you have for people who heard all of this and they really don't know what to do next though, in the sense like, they feel like, yes, they're Muslim. Most Muslims are Muslims by chance and not really Muslims by choice. So once they do feel that, what do you think is the next thing they should do, and how do you think they can like take control of their lives?
That's a very good question. It's a very hard question as well. See, I don't really have the answer in my head, but I do give you some advice. Just do something now, not tomorrow, not next week. Do something now, because I'm a strong believer, and this happens in the da'wah. If you walk to Allah, Allah hurries towards you. Trust me. I can give you an amazing story of my life that'll make you realize this. But just do it. Do something. Don't procrastinate. Just do it. If it's an email, a blog, a talk, a walk, a curry. Actually, let me give you homework. Who's Chinese here? Ethnically Chinese? Any ethnic Chinese here? No ethnic Chinese here. Shame on you, Malays. Shame. This place should be full of Chinese people, Muslims. But you know why we have a really silly culture in this society? That a Chinese Malay, you know, there's like a institutionalized form of racism going on. Yeah, maybe we're jealous because they work too hard, right? Isn't that right? Yeah, lazy Malays, huh? All you do is eat food all the time. You love your food too much, that's the problem. So, and the Chinese, maybe they work hard. Not only that, there's even like some kind of unjust laws maybe. You know, I heard that a Chinese Malay can't own something substantial like a business unless he's in partnership with a Malay. This is terrible. This is their country too. Some of these people have been born here. And what we do, we don't even give dawah to the Malay. Because we think now Islam has become our identity. So much so, there's laws that non-Muslims can't say inshallah and mashallah. What's that about, people? Do you see our cultural mindset is so dodgy? It's like a banana mindset. So what we have to do is start giving dawah to the Chinese. We must give dawah to the Chinese people. These are our brothers and sisters in Malaysia. Save them from the depression of this life and the depression of the hereafter. It's your duty, defines who you are. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. You won't truly believe unless you love for others what you love for yourself. This akhihi doesn't mean Muslim brotherhood. Go to Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali's compendium, a student of Ibn Taymiyyah. He said this means humanity. So if you want to define yourself as a true mu'min, believer, then give that thing you love to others, which is Islam, which is Allah, which is the Prophet ﷺ. So I want everybody in this room, you don't have to put your hand up, but if you can, do it. Invite a Chinese neighbor to your house and give them dinner and give them dawah. Who could do that? Who could do that this weekend? Put your hand up. 2 sisters, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See, that's it, you've done something now. And the ball is rolling. How easy it is to invite a Chinese neighbor, Malay, Chinese person to your house. Cook them something nice. What's that called? Goreng, the famous dish you have. Nasi goreng. Just don't give them durian after though, yeah? But honestly, just start, get the ball rolling. Get the ball rolling. Because this is how you make a better society. The Prophet ﷺ, he invited a mushrik to his house. Gave him a bowl of milk. He asked him, do you want more? He said, yes. Gave him 7 bowls of milk after that. fell asleep in his house. He woke up, then he became Muslim. Just do it. Just engage with people. That's all you have to do. Because sometimes we think we have to do all these huge plans and do these diagrams and have a strategy and go to leadership courses, and we have a leadership crisis and have to have the right type of tajweed and have this and that. This is all rubbish. Honestly, just do something. Get the ball rolling. Walk, move, breathe. Something. Some of us are not even doing anything at all when it comes to the dawah. SubhanAllah, we live in it's a crisis, people. There's a war going on for your hearts and minds. There's a war and we're losing. And you have a range of weapons. And you're looking at the weapons thinking, which one should I choose? For God's sake, we're losing the war. Just pick any up and start firing. Do you see my point? And those weapons, by the way, is rahmah and compassion. Just in case there's any secret agents in this room.
Alhamdulillah. Your actual education was in psychology, I understand.
Yeah,
so how did that help you formulate who you are today? Because we have a lot of psychology students here asking.
Brothers and sisters, I dabbled a little bit of psychology at uni. But the thing is, and this is quite controversial, right? The best learning I've done is outside of university. Okay? Because you may wonder, why could someone who's hardly educated could discuss with PhD professors on certain issues? It's not because I'm clever. It's because I expressed myself when it comes to knowledge. But usually at universities, they teach you what to think, not how to think. When I was doing psychology, my teacher would always say to me, you should be doing philosophy. Because I was always challenged the basis of the framework. And they said, forget it, just accept it and develop something. I said, no, I'm not going to accept it like that. I'm not a slave to your ideology. But it's true. Yeah, but we're the same even in Malaysian universities. I saw there's an intellectual discourse going on how IIUM can make the ummah a better place. Well, the question should be why hasn't IIUM made the ummah a better place? Not how, why hasn't it? And that's the problem, because they've killed your brain. They've enslaved you. They've taken your brain and your heart and they said, you're going to become not a Muslim, not an Islamist, you're going to become an Islamo robot. Yeah? And you just react to old age medieval discourse without understanding what they really meant. You haven't contemporized the religion. We haven't got any published papers in analytical philosophy. We haven't challenged people's minds. We haven't dealt with things like evolution properly. We haven't dealt with atheism on an academic level properly. There's not one book I can recommend to my dad. Not one book I can recommend to my dad. He's slightly intellectual, right? Not one book I can recommend, because no one's written it. Sorry? Yes, on hadith. Oh yes, of course. Nice one. True. But him, who else? Do you see my point? That's my point. So from this perspective, how long has IIUM been open? Don't get me wrong, I'm not belittling this institution, by the way. Yeah, may Allah bless this institution, grant you Jannatul Firdaus, Al-Ala, grant you the best in this life and the hereafter. I'm just saying that we have to be self-critical. وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ, and in themselves, don't they see? Don't they see the bad things too? So the question should be, and go to that discourse and say, I got a question for you, Mr. Emeritus Professor. My question is, why hasn't IIUM been a change for the ummah? The best learning I did, unfortunately, was outside of uni, because I could buy books, I could express myself, even homeschooling. We're thinking of homeschooling our children, right? Because school, the systemic effects of school are terrible. They make you think in a particular way. They don't make you think outside of the box. You're in a box and they make you think that you're not in a box. That's the problem. And we need to have new thinkers. I mean, how many degrees did the Sahaba have? How many degrees did Al-Ghazali have? How many degrees did Ibn Taymiyyah have? How many degrees did our famous Sufyan al-Thawri have? They were just learning under the feet of the ulama, and they were studying and they were thinking and reflecting upon man, life and the universe. Free thinkers, that's free thinking. Not this atheist rubbish, right, that you learn at university and this secular stuff. That's not free thinking. They've given you half the story. So for me, unfortunately, and I hope it's not the same case for you, the best learning I did was outside of university. Outside, you know, I get emails from people saying, "Dear Dr. Tzortzis." I'm like, I'm not a doctor. I'm not even educated. I'm not a doctor at all. I get people in PhD, I can show them to you now from all around the Muslim world and Western world. Brother, I need help with my PhD thesis, right? And when I explain to them who I am, they're like, "Oh, but can you help me anyway?" Now the professor of analytical philosophy, Professor Peter Simon, is saying, "I agreed with 95% of what you had to say." On a high level topic. It doesn't make me clever. I'm not clever. I'm actually quite stupid. Yeah. The reason I got this level is because I did so many things very fast. It was a lot of trial and error. Yeah. So the point is, it's because I just had this zeal and this motivation. So if you have this zeal and motivation, stay in your degree, because you need a degree these days to try and be somebody. Yeah. So you don't have to prove to the world that you've debated 20 people that are so clever. Yeah. You don't have to do that. You could say, "No, I've got a degree." Yeah. So to get your degree, but at the same time realize this is just the beginning. This is nothing. This is a drop in the ocean. And be free thinkers, and Islamic free thinker, by really experimenting in the Islamic discourse and contemporizing Islam, and doing tadabbur and realizing things that you haven't realized before. I mean, take Numan Ali Khan, right? What a beautiful gem in this ummah, yeah? He's contemporized the Quran for us in an amazing way. Now Numan Ali Khan, for instance, did he really do a degree to do tadabbur on the Quran? No, he just did tadabbur on the Quran. And he's making it easy for us. He went to the old classical books, Al-Razi, Qurtubi, many others, and he's contemporizing it for us. But we've had many people from Medina University, from this university, and what are they doing? I mean, what are they doing, people? Where are they? Where are they? And I'm not belittling these people. These are our gems and we respect them. But I'm belittling maybe the way these institutions have killed our hearts sometimes, And we need to revive that. And if the university can't give it to you, then you should give it to the university. It's no excuse just to point the finger. Enroll them in your behavior. Be the change. That's my view on education.
Alhamdulillah, that is, Jazakallah khairan for that. That is unfortunately the time we have for this particular session. Inshallah, if you would like to benefit more from what Brother Hamza has to say, you can enroll for the Dawah Power course, which is this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. I believe they still have some tickets left. I'm not sure. You can check outside at the registration, inshallah ta'ala. Apart from that, I just want to remind you to get your tickets for the Yasmin Mujahid tour, which is coming along your way, inshallah, 26th and 27th of April, this month, in a couple of weeks. Make sure you get your flyers outside and do your registrations as well. And lastly, the Heroes Conference 2014, which is happening on the 27th of April. I just want to take a moment to thank Al-Kawthar Institute, Brother Hamza Tzortzis, for coming all the way, especially because he just got here and he's with his family, and for taking time out to share with us his thoughts on everything, and especially with regards to what wallahi we can do in our lives today. Subhanallah, we literally have a talk every week, guys. Like literally, it's not even like phrase. Literally have a talk every week. Subhanallah, it is time we actually take action in our lives, and this should be it, inshallah. So please benefit from this truly by acting upon it, and wallahi it will bring your life, subhanallah, 5 years from now when we meet again, how will your life be? And hopefully the question will be much better, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan, thank you so much for coming, and thank you for keeping up with the shortcomings in this venue. Barakallahu feekum, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.